Good morning, sports fans. You're listening to 96.9 FM WHYR-LP Baton Rouge Community Radio.
This is Eric Hatfield along with Coach Perry Daniels, and we are here to bring you the latest, the greatest, the best, and the most entertaining in high school, college, and professional sports. You are listening to Louisiana All American Sports. Ain't nobody don't ask me, I'm just so fresh, so clean.
Yeah.
It's showtime here on Louisiana All American Sports, 96.9 FM WHYR-LP, Baton Rouge Community Radio. You are listening to Louisiana All American Sports. I'm Eric Hatfield.
And I'm Coach Perry Daniels.
And it's showtime here again in Baton Rouge. We have a lot of sports going on. Y'all should know the number by now. Area code 225-343-9927. 225-343-9927 to get in on the conversation with us. We don't bite.
Man, we've got a big show in line for you today. The NBA Finals. Man.
And it's something. If you're, I don't know. I do have a rooting interest in this finals. I'm a big LeBron fan, so obviously I'm disappointed. However, I can also switch hats as John Q sports fan and as radio host. As sports fan, it's really impressive to watch the Spurs. It's like, right when you think that, we said a few weeks ago, remember when you were picking the Spurs over the Blazers in the series?
Yes.
And I said, I made the mistake of getting lulled into calling the Spurs old 6 years ago and got burned. I said I'd never do it again. This is another example. It's like these guys just keep getting better, like a fine wine or a cheese or a steak or something like that.
Eric, it is a beautiful thing to watch the San Antonio Spurs play basketball. They do it the right way. You don't see someone holding the ball. You don't see isolations. You see team basketball in every possession.
You sure do.
Offensively and defensively.
Yes, sir. You got, they move the ball. They've been moving the ball. They always move the ball well. They got Tony Parker. They got a Hall of Fame point guard, but they're moving it exceptionally well as a team. Everyone gets in on it. They can move it inside out, outside in the paint, and they're doing everything at a high level. And conversely, at least defensively, the Miami Heat are not the team we've seen on any level. We always know they've been weak in the post, but they've always been excellent at making it hard to get the ball up the court and making teams pay dearly for turnovers. That has not happened in this series.
It has not, man. Let's bring the people up to speed on where things are and where we think things are going to go with this series.
Yes, sir. Right now, as it stands, as after Thursday night, sorry about that, folks. As of Thursday night, the San Antonio Spurs took Game 4 in convincing fashion, dominating offensively. Same with Game 3. They currently hold a 3-1 advantage going back to San Antonio for Game 5 tomorrow night with an opportunity to close the series out. The Spurs took Game 1 in a very unusual set of circumstances in which there was no air conditioning inside the AT&T Center. That led to was probably a heavy factor in the cramping by LeBron James that took him out of the final 4 minutes, and the Spurs took advantage, took Game 1. The Heat took Game 2, really playing their brand of basketball, great transition defense, good shooting. They looked like their old selves. And then in Games 3 and 4, back in South Beach, back in Miami, oh my goodness gracious, American Airlines Arena was grounded as they watched San Antonio shoot for a record 75.8% field goal percentage in the first half of Game 3.
I think that's worth repeating. What was that field goal percentage?
75.8% in the first half of Game 3. 70 points on the board. When that happens, I don't care how well you rally, and the Heat did rally. You're never going to win. The Heat shot actually that same half 58%. Which is good. Really good. Yeah, you're shooting over 50 as a team, let alone almost 60. You're balling. But I mean, the Heat did not play defense. They played no defense in the paint. I think you and I talked about that or texted about that during the game. Then Game 4 was more of the same, not quite at that record-setting level, but the Spurs had their way with the Heat's defense, and really the only player that looked like he had a pulse in Game 4 was LeBron.
Right, and you know what? That may be the issue here, Eric. And I've had conversations regarding this series with a couple of different people over the last few days, and personally, I don't think the solution is for the Heat to score more points.
No, they're not doing a bad job of scoring the ball at all. I mean, even Thursday night, as badly as got hammered, and as much as they appeared to quit, they still scored 86, and that was a one-man show.
Right.
They had, must have had about 100 in game 4. I'm sorry, game 3 or close to it. Yeah. I know that was a high-scoring game. I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
No, I just think that the solution is to play better defensively.
Yeah.
And it remains to be seen whether or not this team can do that against the offensive juggernaut of the San Antonio Spurs.
Right. I mean, the Spurs seem to have just figured out the Heat. They've stayed 2 steps ahead of them. As you said, they've rotated the ball, and it seems like the Heat mentally are a step behind. They don't. It's like they see it coming after the fact, or they don't see it coming until after the fact. They've been all ahead of them. I've heard some rumblings in the sports media that they might try starting Udonis Haslem. He can certainly give them a physical defensive presence, maybe inject a sense of urgency, certainly have some throwaway fouls.
You've got to put someone on Kawhi Leonard.
Right, anybody. Just hit him, bump him, do something. I mean, I'm not saying cheat, but you got to change it up because what you're doing is not working, and they have got to start forcing turnovers like they did in games 1 and 2 and making San Antonio really pay for those turnovers like they have to every other team this season, like they did to San Antonio in game 2, the only game that they won.
Right. Okay, so talk to us, man. Now, you originally picked...
I picked the Miami Heat in 6. That is definitely not happening no matter what. And given the opportunity, the benefit of hindsight to readjust, I'm going to say Spurs in 5. I think they wrap it up on Sunday night.
Wow. I don't think that is the case. And, a little good news and bad news for all you Miami Heat fans out there, and I know there are a lot of you. I don't think this series is over yet. I think the rumors of the Heat demise has been greatly exaggerated. That's the good news.
Right.
The bad news is ultimately the Miami Heat are going to be the runner-up here.
Yeah, I agree. Because the only way they can win is in 7 games, and I've said this on the show a few times. The last NBA Finals in which a Game 7 has been won by the road team was in 1978 by the then Washington Bullets. That's the last time we had a Triple Crown winner in horse racing. That's a long time ago.
Exactly right. And the Miami Heat, to channel the great Rudy Tomjanovich, the former Houston Rocket coach, you never underestimate the heart of a champion. Right. And the Miami Heat are the 2-time champions. I think they win tomorrow. I think they win in Miami and force a Game 7 here and make all NBA fans happy.
I'll tell you what, it'd be fun to see, and I'd like to see it. I mean, there's an old saying, you got to knock out the champ, and I agree. You don't underestimate the heart of the champion. I don't think they're going to just roll over. I don't think they're going to roll over, but they've got to solve San Antonio's movement of the ball. They've got to solve San Antonio's movement. They've got to figure out a way to do something to make them less comfortable in the post. They're just eating them alive out there. It's just unbelievable. It's just really unbelievable the way San Antonio is. You take a guy like Eric Spoelstra, who I think, just kind of watching this team, I think he was probably the architect of that ball-hawking, fast transition defense. Just watching the way this team has changed since they got the big 3.
Yes.
And they look just... Eric Spoelstra's a smart coach. He's not clueless, but they look like they have no clue right now.
What has happened defensively, do you think, Eric?
I think San Antonio, one thing, in that game 1, they turned the ball over horrendously, and I think Popovich got back to the film and said, okay, we are not going to get lucky like this again. We've got to stop this. And they kind of... They didn't quite make the progress they wanted in game 2, but what I did notice is that Miami did not make them pay as badly for the turnovers as they make other teams pay. So maybe he figured something out, and then by game 3 and 4, you saw, they took care of the ball and moved the ball and shot it. It all came together. Popovich is the king of making adjustments, and I don't know what he figured out. I don't have the technical knowledge that he does or that you have, but something changed. Something changed between games 1 and 3 to where the Spurs completely solved the riddle of Miami's defense.
I agree wholeheartedly, and the proof is in the numbers.
Yeah.
So here's the big question, though, man. What do you do with this Miami Heat team that is aging? Do you keep this team together if, as you are suggesting, they lose tomorrow and they only win one game in the NBA Finals. Do you keep this team together, or do you break it up and start over?
Well, let's break it down a little bit. You have obviously the big three is the big story, and the elephant in the room is the king. But all three guys are coming into option years of their contract. Dwayne Wade, given his decline in physical ability, would be insane to opt out of his contract. He'll be there no matter what next year. They might negotiate a couple of fine lines on the contract after the fact, but Dwayne Wade will be in South Beach no matter what.
That's right.
Chris Bosh, we discussed this yesterday when preparing for the show, is really the wild card there. Carmelo Anthony did a little more homework on this, and all the sources I'm reading, particularly from ESPN, which only misses every blue moon, reported that Carmelo's going to opt out of his contract. So if, in fact, that happens, and we've been hearing the rumor mill about Carmelo Anthony having some interest in going down to Miami, that could play a role in Chris Bosh's decision. But notwithstanding Carmelo one way or the other, Chris Bosh is definitely the Ringo Starr of the Heatles, and he's still pretty good, and he could, right now he's not making max money. He's making about 19, 18 million a year. He could easily, a desperate team would pay him 24. Heck, the Raptors might pay him 24 million just to come back there.
He'd be crazy to go back to Toronto.
Well, I mean, look at him this year, man. I mean, look at with Kyle Lowry and with that young guy who went off, DeMar DeRozan, and look how well they did in the first round. They almost took Brooklyn out. I mean, that's an up-and-coming young team.
No, but just how you just struggled to name their key players,
right?
That is why he would be crazy to go back to Toronto. Because before, we had heard rumors of Chris Bosh, but we were not really familiar with Chris Bosh until he hit South Beach.
Right. I mean, when he made the All-Star team that year, that helped him out tremendously. And then you look at his profile, I'm like, wow, this guy's pretty good.
Right.
So, yeah, Chris Bosh could get paid. If he wants to sleep on a mattress full of money, that option's up there.
Yes.
And as you said, this team could be in the decline. So Chris Bosh really is the wild card.
Yes, and I'm not suggesting that he will remain in Miami. I'm just thinking that Toronto is not the best option for him.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
I just pulled that out of the sky.
now, Carmelo Anthony. I really think that Carmelo Anthony here is leveraging for more money. I was surprised to learn in my research, since you and I spoke yesterday, that, the most valuable franchise in the NBA is not the Miami Heat, not the San Antonio Spurs, not even the Los Angeles Lakers. The most valuable franchise, according to Forbes, is the New York Knicks.
Not surprised. I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked.
So I really don't think that this guy is going to leave New York, but he has to position himself as this way so that he can maximize his money.
Yeah, but what I've heard is that Phil Jackson is going to just kind of roll out the max to him. That's a lot. If Carmelo leaves, that's what I don't get. If he's on an option year, so I'm guessing he's doing that to renegotiate his contract.
Sure.
Because if he leaves New York, no matter where he goes, even if every team makes the best faith effort to pay him well, he's still leaving he'd be leaving around anywhere from 20 to 50 million on the table.
Right.
Even if teams violated the luxury tax, et cetera, et cetera. So I agree, and he fits better in New York than he would in Miami, which, as you pointed out yesterday, desperately needs a defensive player, and that's not what Carmelo does.
That is not what Carmelo does. Now, also, I think he may be positioning to get him some help in New York.
Could be, and he does need it because Amari Stoudemire has been, except for that first year after free agency, he's been on the downslide. His knees and everything have really done him in, and he does need some help there in the Big Apple. And the Knicks don't really have the draft resources, and right now in this year they don't have the salary cap resources. Now I know after the coming season, after the 2014-2015 season, a lot of cap space and a lot of draft room is going to open up for the Knicks. But next year is kind of a lost year. It really makes an interesting hodgepodge of moving parts in Gotham.
This is why this is important, though, Eric. In 2015-2016, the NBA television contract comes up for renewal. The New York Knicks need to be a viable team at that time.
They do. They add value to the TV
They
contract.
add value to the television contract.
Wow, good. That's a good. I didn't even think of that angle there, Perry. The elephant in the room is LeBron James, and I'll say I think that's probably going to be it's gold for guys like us and TV and internet people and stuff. I think that's going to be a much ado about nothing. I think LeBron's got it. First of all, he said and most sources have said that the result of this series, whether they win or lose, is not going to impact his decision. Frankly, I believe it's not going to impact his decision because I think he'd be, I'm not going to say crazy, but he's got a good thing going there in Miami, and I just don't see why people right now want to go down there and play with him. The team has a very good base. They have they're still won 4 consecutive Eastern Conference championships. They have a bright young coach. They have Pat Riley. There is a good thing going on down there. Miami has a little machine going on down there in South Beach. So I think whatever is going to need to get worked out is going to get worked out. I just can't picture LeBron leaving. I know with the whole Kyrie Irving deal in Cleveland with that high draft pick, there was some speculation about it being appealing for LeBron to go back. And maybe that might happen one day soon, maybe even sooner than later. It could be a year, it could be 2. But right now, it's just, man, you got to strike while the iron's hot. And in spite of San Antonio bringing them behind the woodshed in this series, they have a good thing going right now. I can't see LeBron giving up that cash cow.
I hear you, man. Hey, we've got a special guest. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you said that. We do have a special guest. We spoke with Mike Taylor of The Ticket 760 in San Antonio. That's the sports station in San Antonio, the Clear Channel property out there. Mike Taylor has been covering the Spurs for a long time. He's a local host. He has a lot of energy, a lot of personality. He was kind enough to give us a few minutes of his time yesterday. And this was a conversation that we had with Mr. Taylor. Check it out. Well, let me ask you a question. Did you, I guess it's almost kind of a leading question. I'm sure that most fans, even the most gung-ho Spurs fans, probably did not expect a 3-1 lead at this point. Did you expect the team to play the way that they've been playing, particularly the last 2 games?
This is the best basketball they've played all year long. Now, they've been good all year long. They won a bunch of games, and they've got home court for a reason, but the last 2 nights in Miami have just been absolutely better than they played all year because of Kawhi Leonard's emergence. Something has lit a fire over that young man's butt, and he has been the best player they've had for the last 2 nights, where Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker were following his lead, and that doesn't happen around here too often, where somebody else is leading the thing. And because Kawhi Leonard's emergence, man, this is the best they've played all year, and I was stunned, and I think everybody else was last night to see it go that way. Not necessarily shocked that they won the game,
right?
But the way they just tore Miami's butt apart. Maybe Miami's getting tired too, but we haven't played this good all year.
Kawhi Leonard, we saw him break out last year, and now he's having a monster year in the finals. Is he the future of this franchise?
Absolutely. And they were able to trade for him on draft night a few years ago, and a year and a half ago, Pop called him the future face of the franchise. I thought, okay, you say so, man.
Right.
Because he does everything wrong except he couldn't shoot when he got here, and he had to completely overhaul his shot. And he has come into this organization, and he has lit a fire on everybody. He's rejuvenated this organization.
What has been the mood of the fan base now in these finals?
The mood has been cautiously optimistic, I don't know that, had the Spurs been completely honest with you, people like Bob or Tim 2 years ago, if they'd been completely honest, they would have said, well, it's probably a long shot. We ever get a chance to get back to the finals.
Right.
Portland's coming on. Oklahoma's arrived. The Clippers are getting better. We're getting older. And I think that last year they wind up in the finals. Tim Duncan has overhauled his game. He's not the same player he was, and I've never seen a guy adjust to his. He's lost his step, and Tim's changed his game, and he is better today than he was 2 years ago. Not 7 years ago, but he's better today than he was 2 years ago.
Sure.
So he overhauled his game, and I'll be darned if they don't wind up back in the finals last year. And Tim Duncan went through hell, man. I mean, he changed his conditioning. He changed how he plays the game. He changed his entire outlook. He went through a terrible divorce in the middle of the finals.
Didn't know that.
And he did that. I know that, and it affected him, man. But basketball was kind of his church, kind of his sanctuary to get away from all that, and to get that close and to taste it, knowing that 2 or 3 years ago you probably didn't think you'd ever get back, and to lose it the way they lost, man. What a great story for them to be back. Not only not in the finals, but now with a 3-1 lead over the best team in the league, which I don't know that to a man that would have been honest with you and had been forced to put their hand on the Bible and tell the truth. They would have done 3 years ago. We'll be back in the final. Here they are 2 years in a row. So, sorry, the Spurs are still not dead, and I'll be here to do still be good 2 or 3 more years down the road. Yeah.
Did y'all kind of have the feeling this was where the team was going during the regular season? Was Tim Duncan, I mean, I know that Pop has sometimes reduced their minutes and so on, but was the mood finals or bust heading into the playoffs this year?
For them it was, for sure. This is a championship or bust team. It's a great way to put it, man. They show up every day because their goal is to win a title. Whether they think they're a serious contender or not, that's why they're here. They have decided to go over the luxury tax the last couple of years, which they've never done that small market team.
Wow.
Tim Duncan has taken a pay cut in order for them to keep other people. And they just decided they didn't want to waste the twilight of Tim's career. They wanted to, even if they maybe weren't as good as they used to be, they're chasing titles here. They don't want Tim Duncan to flame out. And like Dirk Nowitzki comes to mind up in Dallas.
Right.
That team has failed that man, and they are ruining the last few years of his career by being bad and mediocre around him.
Right.
And Antonio didn't want that. They wanted him to go out and fight like hell to win a 5th ring. What I was saying in October, if they're going to go back to the finals, it's going to be because Kawhi Leonard becomes a household name and turns into the bona fide star that Greg Popovich thinks he can. And he's had ups and downs, and he spent some time hurt this year. He had a terrible game the other day.
Right, he sure did.
He had a conversation with Pop after game 2, and whatever they talked about, it lit a fire over that man's butt. He has been tremendous. And here they are now. Kawhi's becoming a household name. So
he sure is.
I think God I was wrong.
Well, look, with Tim Duncan, I mean, look, my broadcast partner speculated that if the Spurs won this year, that he'd ride off into the sunset. I didn't quite get that vibe. You're right there locally. What's your take on Duncan and his remaining his tenure?
You know what? Tim is cut from a different cloth. He's an island kid. He's laid back. And he plays to win titles and all, but I don't think it's going to have anything to do when he retires. Tim is dead forever. He's always said, look, I'm going to play until the wheels fall off. Basketball's what I do. And if the wheels happen to fall off in the same year they win the championship, then he will ride off into the sunset. The arrival of this new guy, Kawhi Leonard, has just it's put this team back to where it was 5 and 6, 7 years ago. And I don't think they want to waste it. I don't think Tim wants to walk away with Kawhi only being 22. I don't think Pop wants to walk away with Kawhi only being 22. Yeah.
Manu Ginobili, what's his longevity looking like?
Well, Manu's probably the shortest stick of all of them, and he knows that. And I'm so happy for him, too, just because that guy's gone through hell. He's taken a lot of criticism for playing overseas in the summers, even though he's at an older age.
Right.
They can't tell him, look, man, we don't want you to play in the summer. He's the best player from his country, and I get that. But he has really worn out the last few years, and he had to rededicate himself to fishing. I don't know how old you are. I'll be 40 this year. Even world-class athletes, when they get to the upper 30s, it's harder to keep that weight off, man. So
yeah. Tell me about it.
Had to rededicate himself. Yeah, Manu has lost weight. He's a 32-inch belt size, and he's 6'6". And he had to do that because he has lost his step, and he's not as good as he used to be. And Kawhi Leonard's actually passed him on the pecking order here.
Right.
But I'm thrilled for him that they have a chance to be in the finals. And he didn't have a good finals last year.
No, he did not.
He played terrific this week, and I'm happy to see it for him. But I don't know that Manu will be here I don't think he'll be here in 2 years.
Everyone knows Popovich's coaching genius, but obviously it takes more than the captain to steer the ship, and particularly with bringing in the talent. What are there any names behind the scenes that certainly folks in Louisiana might not know, that maybe scouting or assistants that have a lot to do with bringing in that talent that fits this system so well?
Yeah, well, the problem is they can't keep any of these guys. There was a guy named Dennis Lindsay who was one of their behind-the-scenes scouts, one of these basketball geeks that all he ever did was watch tape and travel the country and the world watching players. Dennis Lindsay's now the general manager of the Utah Jazz. They had this guy who was a video coordinator. He was an intern, worked his way through the ranks, became one of their top scouts, and his name was Sam Presti. Now he's the general manager of the Thunder. And the people in Portland, there's 2 or 3 guys that work for Portland that used to work here. You guys, the Hornets have, the coach and the GM,
right,
the employees in San Antonio.
That's right.
R.C. Buford he's quiet. He's behind the scenes. But he and Pop have created a huge family tree of coaches and scouts and managers all over the league. It's like Bill Parcells now.
Right.
And it's the perfect scenario. They've got the greatest power forward that ever lived, and they've got a coach and a general manager that are best friends and work awesome together. It's a marriage made in basketball heaven.
I like that. That's a good tagline, man. Game 5. What's the vibe on what's your perception of the vibe on both sides? By sides, I'm talking about the teams, the players and coaches on both sides.
I think that everybody's saying the right things, and this group last year went through what they went through in Game 6. They were 28 seconds away with a 5-point lead and lost. They're up 3-1. They've got a game in their back pocket at home. God forbid there's a Game 7, but even if there is, it's here.
Right.
And so, they know that they're on the brink of winning this thing, but no one's saying it. They're going to stay the course until this thing is done.
Now, have you had any communication with maybe some of your contacts in Miami? Do you have any read on what's going on over there? What's going on in their nest?
Honestly, no. I don't know if you agree with this, but man, I saw Spoelstra was saying all the right things. We're still in it. We can still make history. It's one game to them. Blah blah blah. That he was one of the dude that knew he was beaten last night. LeBron James looks like a beaten man. Their core has played in 10,000 more playoff minutes than the San Antonio core over the last 4 years.
Wow.
It's amazing because the Spurs have played a ton of playoff games too.
Right.
But Spoelstra runs those three major players they got into the ground. Nobody averaged 30 minutes a game in San Antonio
That's
this year.
Right.
Nobody.
That's right.
Nobody. Tony let this team in minutes played at 29 minutes a game. LeBron played 38 minutes a game. That team is worn out, and they know they're not the best team in the series, and you can see it all over their faces.
Yeah, they certainly do look defeated. Look, Mr. Taylor, I really appreciate you giving us your time. We really appreciate the perspective. We like to get the insight because we can, radio guys can sit up there and we can talk all day about what we think, but it's always we get a better, a better point of view when we get somebody straight from the source. So I really do appreciate you taking a couple of minutes out of your day to chit chat with us here on Louisiana All American Sports.
Absolutely. When my Yankees play LSU, I'll be calling you for some LSU insight.
Hey, that sounds great to me. I was going to say we're definitely happy to return the favor anytime. We are have our hands deep in Louisiana sports and Saints, LSU, Southern, etc. So that was our conversation with Mike Taylor of Ticket 760 out of San Antonio. Really nice of him to give the little guy a little piece of his time because he's pretty well followed out there in San Antonio.
Hey, man, that was a great job on that interview.
Thank you very much. And special thanks to Mr. Taylor. He didn't have to do that, and he stayed in touch with me. I actually reached out to him during the OKC series, and our schedules never lined up, but he opened his doors wide open. So thank you very much, Mike Taylor of Ticket 760 San Antonio. So we got Game 5 coming up tomorrow. Could be a requiem for the Heat, or it could be some new life injected into the series. If you're a media person or just a general sports fan, you're hoping for a Miami win just to keep the gravy train going a little while longer. In NBA news, Donald Sterling aims to dig up dirt, which is weird because I've often compared him to a fungus or mildew on a shower tile. It just keeps growing and growing, and you can't get rid of it no matter what you do. It's just, this story gets weirder and weirder. It reminds me of an old song by MC8 of Compton's Most Wanted. It was the 1994 solo album, We Come Strapped. It was called I'ma Take Two With Me. Now, that's a gangster song. I can't quote lyrics.
I'm impressed, Eric.
Man, that was some good old stuff.
To MC8?
Oh, yeah, I liked him. And anyway, I can't quote lyrics because if you know Compton's Most Wanted, it's not family friendly, but the song is basically, it's a street song. He's talking about if they're coming to get him in the street, he's going to take two guys down with him. That's what Donald Sterling appears to be doing right here. He's going to dig up dirt. He's hired 4 private investigation firms to dig up dirt on the NBA's former and current commissioners and its 29 owners. And apparently, if he's going down, he wants to take some people down with him.
And I don't blame him. Look, I know this may come as a shock to a lot of you. However, I am in Donald Sterling's corner on this right here. The NBA is trying to position this as a solo issue, an isolated issue. And Donald Sterling saying, no, it's not. This is the culture of the NBA, and I want to expose it all if you're going to expose me. I think that we have an opportunity here to see these NBA owners for what they really are. And I can't wait until, I hope that this goes to court. I don't think there's any way, Eric, that the NBA is going to allow this to be drug into court.
No, I think I think one of two things is going to happen. I do think from a legal standpoint, I'm not an attorney, but I have listened carefully to those who are in the know. It seems like Donald Sterling legally is backed into a corner, but he has enough to draw it out, string it, to poke and stab the NBA on the way down.
Right.
To take two with him.
Now, so he may be leveraging for a better deal.
He could. I tell you what, though, man.
It's hard to get a better deal than $2 billion.
Steve Ballmer reached in his pocket with $2 billion. The record for an NBA franchise was only a fourth of that earlier this season when the Milwaukee Bucks were bought for $500 million. So, I mean, I don't know, man. But, Donald Sterling did not get where he was by being conventional or stupid.
Right. So, where do we go from here? NBA, I'm a little disappointed. I've expressed this before. It was brought to my attention that, I've never shared with our audience on this station, my sentiments here. So I am going to do that now, Eric. So listen up, silly mortals. Here it is. The NBA has an opportunity to diversify their ownership club. Steve Ballmer does not do that. No offense against Steve Ballmer, but the people who were offended by the Donald Sterling comments have an opportunity here to get some restitution, and the NBA can provide that. They can reject the Steve Ballmer deal because it still has to be approved by the owners. The owners must vote on who they want to be their partner. They can say, no, we do not want you, Steve Ballmer. There is a precedent for the NBA owning a franchise. So they could purchase this franchise from the Clippers at the same value that Ballmer has put up, at the same value, and then they can make sure that the people who were offended have a stake in ownership. Not only that, Eric, that would be good, but ideally, I believe that it is time for us to get away from this model of ownership that we have in our professional sports.
Interesting.
I'm a firm believer that the community, as entrenched as sports is in our daily lives,
right.
I think that the community should own the franchise.
Like the Green Bay Packers.
Like the Green Bay Packers.
Those of you who, I guess, know me personally, is that the telephone? Okay, sorry about that, folks.
We've got a new phone.
Yeah, those of you that know, sorry about that, guys. Those of you who know me personally and have heard me on this show before, I tend to fall probably a little more towards the center on this particular topic as far as finding a resolution to it. But I do think that creativity can better a sport in a lot of ways. I don't know if public ownership is necessarily feasible with the fiscal conservatism that has swept the entire country, and how taxpayers are trying to hold on to their dollars and so forth. And I don't know what the answer necessarily is, but I do think that if the NBA makes it an initiative, makes it a focus, that they can increase minority ownership. David Stern, when the Charlotte franchise, formerly the Bobcats, now the Hornets, the Charlotte Hornets now, when that franchise was up, David Stern, while he never showed his hand, gave every hint in the book that he was trying to angle for some African-American majority ownership, and Bob Johnson, a billionaire who founded the BET network, wound up buying the team, and then he sold his majority share to Michael Jordan. So if it's a focus, it can be accomplished. I have probably a more conservative point of view on it. I think the future generations, the guys like LeBron James, who from all accounts is taking care of his money and making his money, guys like Kobe Bryant, people like that who have earned way more money during their stay in the NBA than their past predecessors ever earned from salary, like Magic Johnson, who was earning single digits all the way to the end of his career.
Yes.
Guys like that, they have an opportunity, if they take care of their wealth and pool together, to really have an equity stake in the NBA. These are the guys that are making the league, and now they can own part of the league. I think it can happen. Different points of view, but I do think it'd be. I would love to see them tinker with the public ownership, maybe in a small market.
Yeah.
You know that might be
any market, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. I hear your point.
Right. You know, I mean, New Orleans could have been a pilot, but you know,
that would have been awesome if the people of New Orleans would have gained ownership.
Right.
Of the Pelicans.
You know, but kudos to Tom Benson for stepping it up and taking any kind of relocation off the table too, because that was a real danger if someone had not bought that team soon.
Okay, man. So look, we've got our special guest who enlightens our audience and enlightens our studio when he calls in, and we have the Professor Johnson, on the line, Eric. And Eric, we have neglected to mention Professor Johnson's book, man. He is a published author.
Oh, I'm not surprised. Published in Parrish Academia. I should have known.
Right. So the name of the book is The Genesis and Evolution of Magnolia Mound Plantation.
Oh, wow.
On the Master's Plantation.
I visited that once. Good morning, Professor. How are you doing today?
Good morning, gentlemen. Peace and blessings to my universal family. How are we?
Oh, fantastic today, actually. How are you? Sounds like you're pretty chipper this morning yourself.
I am. I wanted to commend Eric for being quite metaphoric today, using the analogy of a mildewed shower towel. and also for his reference to MC8 and Compton's Most Wanted lead thumb strap. Shout out to MC8 and Mike T.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Professor, man, we're ready, man. Drop your jewel on us.
Thank you, brother. I want to share with you some information about a prestigious player from the Negro Baseball League. His name was Chippy Breeder, and he's from Alexandria, Louisiana. Born April 26, 1927, he played for the Kansas City Monarchs between 1950 and 1951, and the Birmingham Black Barons in 1954. He was an outfielder in the Negro League and was struggling to survive the loss of organized baseball players. He averaged .268 and continued with the Monarchs through the continuation of that season. However, Breeder, who played outfield, developed a highly popular and valuable position with his team. He was called a hard hustler and a dangerous hitter by the Kansas City press. After ending his career, Breeder became an educator in Louisiana. Throughout his career, he served in numerous positions. He retired in 1986 after serving 16 years as the principal of the illustrious McKinley Senior High School.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. William Breeder.
So, Eric, I hate to have this reoccurring theme of McKinley Senior High School, but this alludes to the fact of the wealth of knowledge and the talent pool that we have to draw from. When I shared this with Perry and I mentioned it to him, I told him that, man, did you know that Mr. Breeder was a former Negro League player? He was like, really? Yes, sir. Our principal, the illustrious Mr. William Breeder, played for the Kansas City Monarchs. Yes, sir.
Hail, hail.
Awesome, man. You hear Eric hollering, hail, hail. Hey, Professor, though, we had a special request, man. We have a listener in Texas, Caleb Bryant, hit me up. I forwarded the request to you. Are we prepared to address that today?
Indeed.
Please, sir. Caleb Bryant requested that we discuss the origin of the Juneteenth celebration.
Yes, sir. And I want to thank Taylor for tuning in and listening to you guys. You guys have a great following, and I've been spreading the word about your show as well.
We appreciate it.
But Taylor, let's get right into it. The origins of Juneteenth culminated in June of 1865 when a Union general by the name of Gordon Granger rode into Galveston, Texas to inform the inhabitants of the Civil War 2 months earlier that Abraham Lincoln had initiated the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation was merely just that. It was a proclamation, it was a document. You have to realize that there were two separate countries, the Confederate States of America and the United States of America. The proclamation had no legal boundaries, legal bite with the Confederacy. However, it was proclaimed. And actually, first and foremost, Abraham Lincoln said this, and this is something that a lot of people don't know. Abraham Lincoln offered, look, if you stop fighting us now and filter back into the Union, you can keep slavery, but we just won't allow it to expand. So a lot of people aren't aware of that fact. So Abraham Lincoln did that with the Emancipation Proclamation. However, but what transpired when Granger rode into Galveston to inform the inhabitants that the Civil War had ended, it was June 19th, and it was actually 2 years later. So the powers that be probably did not inform them. There was no internet. There was no telephone. However, there was Pony Express, and there was telegraphs. There were telegraphs. So the individuals found out at a later date that they had been freedom had been extended to them, and that the war had ended. Now, this was a 2-year period where these individuals did not know that the Civil War had ended and that slavery had come to a close.
Awesome. Hey, Professor Johnson, man, appreciate the jewels every time. We'll hear from you in a couple of weeks, man. Keep doing your thing. Keep pushing that knowledge on the people. We love you.
Man, thank you, Perry. Thank you, Eric. You guys have a good day.
Thank you, Professor. Have a good one.
All right.
Interesting new development.
That was Professor Terrell Johnson of Southern University, author of, I don't want to butcher the title.
The Genesis and Evolution of Magnolia Mound Plantation on the Master's Plantation.
All right. So there's a lot of, that was a great interlude, as always, by the professor. I always learn something new. We talked about a lot about projections and where we expected the Clippers to go and what we expect with the series. There's going to be a lot of opportunity to say I told you so, which brings us up to our regular bit, I told you so. This I told you so is a little different. I mean, this is definitely the slower season in sports, and most of what we had to discuss in the last week, besides the NBA Finals, are really kind of current events, comings and goings. So this I told you so is almost like a combination of where we were right and where we were wrong, and a little bit of a week in review, but it's pretty entertaining. And if you've been watching the finals, the new Apple commercial, you might enjoy the soundtrack a little bit. It's a little lighthearted. Harkens back to the 1960s. Here we go.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
So, the Raging Cajuns will take on the Ole Miss Rebels. The Ole Miss Rebels are 44-18. They are ranked anywhere from 6th in the country in the collegiate baseball poll to 17th in the country in the USA Today poll. And the ULL Lafayette Raging Cajuns are number 1 in all 4 polls. They are 57-8. Since the NCAA has gone to a cap of the number of games that a collegiate team can play, no team has won 60 games in a season. Wow. And the Cajuns are just 3 victories away from doing that.
Yeah, in Major League Baseball last night, great Friday night of action, a lot of leadoff action, a lot of good individual performances. I'll just run down the scores real quick. The Oakland A's beat the Baltimore Orioles 4-3 in 11 innings. A lot of controversy there. A tagout almost resulted in a little bit of a fight. You can probably see the highlights on MLB Network for that.
That's Manny Machado taking an inside pitch from Fernando Abad. Machado staring him down and lets the bat go to third base. And this is a Machado guy who took exception to a tag in Game 1 of this series on Friday when the bench is cleared. 11-1.
Yeah, man. Talk to me. What do you have for us this morning?
We got a Triple Crown going on here, or California Chrome is going for the Triple Crown.
Right.
And Vegas has them favorite to winning the Belmont Stakes at 11-10, which means you bet $10, you win $1. So
Wow. Yes.
Yeah, but you got to realize nobody has won this thing in 36 years.
In my lifetime, I will never see another Triple Crown winner because of the way they do this. It's not fair to these horses that have been in the game since day one. I look at it this way. If you can't make enough points to get in the Kentucky Derby, you can't run in the other two races.
ULL, they are a plus 130 to win this series with Mississippi State, which means you got to bet 100. You bet 100 on ULL, and you'll win 130. Now Mississippi State is minus 150.
Now, you brought us an NHL hockey update. You made fun of me for supporting the Kings a little while ago, but it looks like they've beaten the odds over and over and over and over again. Tell me who I should be putting my money on in this series.
I gotta go with the Kings. They done beat the Blues 2 years in a row, and they just beat the Blackhawks, which beat the Blues. So I'm gonna go with your Kings.
I'm a racist.
They have the Spurs are minus 140 to win the NBA championship. Minus 240, excuse me, minus 240 to win the NBA.
Off 100, so like it's 100. You bet 100, and I'm sorry, you bet 240, you win $100. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And as Eric was reading that report, I'm thinking to myself, gee, man, I wonder if I can't wait to talk to Brian to find out how the African American did in Toronto this weekend.
You can go past your pain threshold. However, your brain has to tell the muscles to work, and if the muscles say no, you're not doing anything. And
Wait, man, I don't think we're officially our picks for this series. I don't think we've officially made them.
I don't think we did. I don't think we did. I'll stay even after game one. My original pick was Miami in 6. It's still Miami in 6. I did not expect the Heat to win game 1, and they didn't.
You were right.
Right. I'm going to go with the Spurs in 7. I think it's going to be one of the best series that we've seen in a while. Last All right, man. That was the I Told You So segment. And now we have our regular talk show, our regular contributor to the show, my homie, G the Fixer. G, we're trying to get your theme music queued up as we speak, man. Here it is.
I'm going down, yo, street in the rain. Come on. Ready to let it go. Shit, we go for up. Listen to it loud. Light it up and take a puff. That's the team.
What up, G?
Oh, we didn't record it. Start over again.
Hold on, G.
Go, we're good now.
Yeah, you weren't on the air. What up, G?
Hey, what's going on, bro?
It's all good, man. Hey, you know, here in America, man, we love our football. We love baseball, basketball. But the most popular sport in the world is soccer. And right now it's time for the World Cup. What do you have for us?
Well, we got the odds for the World Cup here. Of course, Brazil leads already at 3-1. Argentina 7-2. Germany 13-2. And Netherlands 11-1. Spain 9-1. France 22-1. You got Belgium at 22. England at 25-1. And then we got our Americans down here at 250-1.
Whoa! Wait. We're 250-1 to win this thing?
250-1.
So
Wow.
this same team could play every 4 years, and it'd be 1,000 years before we win the World Cup.
That's a good way to look at it.
But I tell you what, they're not the worst ones.
Who's worse?
Oh, the worst team is Australia, 3,000-1.
In that case, I say Viva 3014, USA.
Wow, man. Okay, so Brazil's the overwhelming favorite?
Brazil's overwhelming favorite.
And you
Brazil's
know,
always favorite. They always put out a good team every every 4 years.
I'm a little concerned about the controversy in Brazil, and I just don't feel like they're going to get it done this year because of all the turmoil at home that they have to deal with their fellow citizens. Who's the team right behind them, according to the odds, G?
Right behind whom?
Brazil.
Argentina.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're always good, too.
See, yeah, I'm thinking Argentina or Uruguay should emerge from this thing as the World Cup champion. So,
well, Uruguay 28-1. That's a pretty good bet. If you can make that happen, that'd be a pretty good lick. You come to Vegas and drop 100 and walk out with
pretty nice piece of change.
Pretty nice piece of change.
If I was a betting man.
And unless everybody eats the wrong thing and Australia wins, you bet $1 and win 3,000.
Huh. So talk to me, man. You know, we're kind of tight. We've had a full show. Do you have anything else to contribute? We're never going to limit your time. So do you have anything else to contribute?
Oh, no. I can tell you, buddy Eric there, that the LA Kings pulled it out.
He called
I got to give him credit on that. The Kings did pull it out.
He's got a smile on his face from ear to ear in here, G.
Yeah, you got to give credit where credit is due. They let the Rangers have it.
That's right.
Heck of a game last night.
I don't see that being the only blowout going on. I think there'll be another blowout that's in the making right now.
And where would that blowout be?
That blowout would be the Miami Heat getting blown out by the San Antonio Spurs.
So you're thinking that Sunday's the last game as well?
Yeah. I think they can took the fight out the dog.
Okay. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right, man. Hey, got to run. You know the drill, man. Stay off the grid. Stay out of jail. Peace.
All right. Peace.
That was The Fixer.
I'm going down, baby. Yo, street in the rain. Come on. Boom, baby. Ready to let it go. Shit, we go up. Listen to it loud. Light it up and take a puff. That's it.
Well, that was The Fixer, and so we got it's going to be a whole lot of shaking going on in the World Cup. The USA, of course, starts, I believe, Tuesday against Ghana, who has eliminated them from World Cup competition and Gold Cup competition. It's if you Google, go to YouTube and Google Jim Rome Show USA Ghana Soccer. There's a very, very funny remix that they did with a soccer fan, just darn near bawling in tears about why does it have to be Ghana every time they beat us. And I have a bad feeling that's probably what's going to happen again, but it is funny. Puts a little soap opera music to the background of it. Ed O'Bannon, former UCLA basketball star, a short-time NBAer, he's holding his own. He was holding his own on the witness stand in his lawsuit against the NCAA, sticking to his view that college players should be paid because their athletic abilities are the main reason that they're in school to begin with. That lawsuit effectively saying that the NCAA utilized their likeness and images for profit and did not share them with did not share into the revenues or profit with any of the players, and that's notwithstanding scholarships, room and board, etc. One point that was brought up repeatedly were the video games, for example, which have, certainly not necessary to facilitate a college basketball program. They made some profit off of that. There was some action involving EA Sports that we discussed last year in the fall. Perry's really been on top of this more so than I am, so I'll let you take the run with this one.
Hey, man, I am just glad to see, I love underdog situations, and Ed O'Bannon is taking on the big NCAA in this thing, and his attorneys are doing a fantastic job. They are positioning this thing. Friday was day 5 of this lawsuit in court, and it sounds like to me that Ed O'Bannon is going to be successful here, and the rest of the people that have joined his petition against the NCAA. So it is going to be very interesting to see how this shakes out. There are some numbers that I don't think due to time that we can get into, Eric. However, if this goes the way it looks like it's going, and the NCAA loses this lawsuit, I think you will see the end of that organization, the NCAA. I believe that the conferences will run from the NCAA like they have the plague. The conferences have already said that they want to pay these guys.
Right. The conferences have a lot of leverage here. A lot of leverage.
Yes. And I just don't understand why this is in court.
For reference, guys, we're talking power conference. If you're not a sports buff, that's the Southeastern Conference, the Pacific, the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the ACC. Right. But, I agree with you. I think it shows profound arrogance that the NCAA didn't settle. Settling is how you minimize your liability. And, I'm not an attorney, but I've taken 9 hours of undergrad and graduate business law. And one thing I've taken away is that the law is grounded mostly in common sense. And just common sense is if you use somebody's likeness and their image and turn a profit, you got to pay them, and they didn't do that. So I think the NCAA is going to be on the losing end here.
And one of the things that was evidence in court against the NCAA was the European model. We just spoke about soccer, and there in Europe, the owners of the clubs must pay their amateur players for the likeness, for their images that they use in publicizing their teams.
Perry, something just occurred to me. You realize in about 90 seconds we have coming up here on WHYR
Noel Jackson
with Music Satisfaction coming up at 12 o'clock.
Real quick, man, we had a legend in football die yesterday.
Yes, it was late last night. Pittsburgh Steelers longtime coach Chuck Noll. He was the coach before last for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It tells you about the stability of that organization. Anyway, he passed away last night. He was 82 years old. Chuck Noll went 209, 156, and 1, including the postseason while coaching the Steelers from 1969 through 1991. The Steelers won 4 Super Bowls during his tenure. Super Bowls 9, which was in New Orleans, 10, 13 and 14, starting one of the greatest dynasties of the 1970s.
Also, Fernando Puebla, former assistant coach at Southern University's baseball team, is returning, according to Coach Roger Kadar. He is returning at the end of this month to join the Southern Jaguar baseball team once again on the coaching staff. So hopefully next year they'll have a more typical season than they had this year. Also, the NCAA meeting with Southern University is scheduled for June the 25th, and that is to address the issues of academic progress, and hopefully the results of that meeting will lift the postseason ban that has been placed on the Southern University Jaguars.
So hopefully a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow for the Jags and the Jaguar Nation. That is all the time we have today on Louisiana All American Sports on 96.9 FM WHYR-LP, Baton Rouge Community Radio, like we always say.
ADT, JNS, love you.
Have a good afternoon.
Hail to the King and Lords of Lords. May He protect us from the evil. Hail to the King, Lords of Lords. May He protect us from evil.